meth fuses with your libido, with sex. So you
Yeah.
can't think about sex without meth. And so how many times does a man think about sex during the day, right?
Yep.
And so anytime you're horny, you're triggered.
Uh-huh.
You can't say that for a lot of other substances. This world, it's very, as they say, piggy, like it's very kinky. You go into some dark places, and it's never enough. The problem is that it's never enough. Like it's okay, like okay, if somebody's into fisting, right? There's no judgment on fisting,
Mhm.
but it's never enough. Like then you need two fists, and then you need fisted with something else, and then you need it videotaped, right? Then you need to do it in public, right? It's just never enough taboo for you. There's a new meth, quote unquote, in the U.S., and it's been created in cartel labs. So this meth is 99% pure.
Ooh.
Then the price has gone down too. So it takes just a little bit, which is the reason why it's becoming much more popular. Is the price is going down and the potency is up. So I can smoke a little and I'll be up for a few days. Like the high lasts a long time.
Hello, my name is Tom Bruett. I am a sex and relationship therapist, and I am so excited to be here today with Dallas Bragg. Welcome, Dallas.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you are, I first fell in love with the work that you're doing through your Instagram account. You're
Mm.
doing some really, really important messaging out there for gay and queer men who are in the chemsex world. And you do a lot of other things. You're a coach, and we'll be getting into that more as we kind of go through this. But you have your own personal history with recovery, and I imagine you found some things that work for you, and that's probably part of what is in your holistic coaching program. Do I have that right?
That's right. That's right. Because when I went through, there were hardly barely any resources for me, and so I just wanted to give back. I wanted to fill that gap and give back. So a lot of it is what I've done, but also what I've picked up too over the
Mm-hmm.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was first getting my early hours for being a therapist, I worked in a men's rehab. And one of the
Mhm.
most difficult experiences that I was having was a lot of gay and queer men who they would come to rehab for 60, 30, 90 days, whatever it was. And then they would go back out into the world, and then they would come back in a month or two or three. And I wonder if that's something that you find is common in the people that you work with or in your own personal experience.
Yes, yes, I do. And that's kind of how I see myself with the coaching program that I have is in between treatment and therapy,
Hmm.
right? So I'm the transition out, so I keep you away from the substance so that you can be therapized, right? It's hard to be therapized when you have methamphetamine in your system.
Yeah.
But what I have found is with chemsex, and we can talk more about this, is the nuance of it is that it's all here on your phone, because of Grindr, because of Sniffies, geosocial dating apps, because of Telegram, because of Zoom. This is a different type of setting and subculture. Like you can't go on Zoom and find a 24/7 room of other people drinking alcohol together or shooting heroin together. But you can go on Zoom and use meth with men around the world 24/7.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a different scenario that requires a different approach. So when you leave treatment and you go back into the same, and this is the same for any addiction, really, the same people, places, and things, as they say, the chances of you um, relapsing are pretty high, but it's even more with chemsex because of the phone.
Yeah.
And it's all at night. It's all from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So you can sneak out and people don't know. And it's a whole different world.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so different, and I think so many treatment facilities don't actually are not geared towards gay men, and so you can't apply the same tools that you would use with alcohol addiction with chemsex, because
Yeah.
also the way that the brain kind of works, right? I mean, the brain, it takes at least, and I'm going to probably get this statistic wrong, and you can help me out here, but it takes I think like 11 to 12 months for your brain to actually kind of return to normal after using methamphetamine.
hmm Well, the the main studies say 12 to 24 months.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a long time, and it fuses with gay men. The meth fuses with your libido, with sex. So you
Yeah.
can't think about sex without meth. And so, how many times does a man think about sex during the day, right?
Yep.
And so, anytime you're horny, you're triggered.
Uh-huh.
So you can't say that for a lot of other substances.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's so tricky because for a lot of people too, there's this epidemic of gay loneliness, and meth can be
right.
a really great, uh, way to sort of mask that in some
Hmm.
ways. Is that something you find with the men that you're working with, that there's
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of loneliness and shame kind of in the mix?
Yeah, I would say loneliness is quickly topping the reasons why men use, gay men.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of men now using in isolation too.
Mm.
Like they will lock themselves in a bedroom with their meth and their porn and their toys and they're disappeared for 3 days.
Wow.
It's just like let me just step away from the world and escape everything, and I'm not even good enough to be around people, right? But what I have found with chemsex as well is that men get addicted to finally being free,
Mm.
finally being able to be themselves in this world, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I got addicted to my first time was I didn't have the internalized homophobia vanished.
Wow.
Yeah. The insecurities about what I look like, what I acted like, they're all gone. It's as if everything you've ever wanted is handed to you within a puff of
Hmm.
a substance. And all the stress of being gay in today's world is just gone. And to me, that's really what you're addicted to.
Yeah.
You get to have the type of sex you've seen on the porn, and you get to explore without any kind of guilt, without any kind of second thought or in your head or anything like that. It's a magic elixir for especially a gay man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what happens next, right? So it's a magical elixir for a little bit of time.
Right.
And then what do you see next usually?
Yeah, yeah. So, with meth, so meth there's a new meth, quote unquote, in the US, and it's been created in cartel labs. So this meth is 99% pure,
Ooh.
then the price has gone down too. So it takes just a little bit, which is the reason why it's becoming much more popular, is the price is going down and the potency is up. So I can smoke a little and I'll be up for a few days. Like the high lasts a long time. So when you're in it and you don't want it to stop, of course, you're going to keep using. And so that can turn into a week very easily for
Hmm.
you. And you've been up a week. So when you've been awake that long and you're not eating and you're really not drinking, so you're dehydrated, your brain is all off, then you go into a lot of men, this is a big problem, is psychosis.
Hmm.
You start seeing things, and as anybody who's used knows the shadow people that
Yeah.
come. Like, you start seeing all the things happening and bugs crawling up the walls and all that kind of stuff. That the actual psychosis is becoming more prevalent because of the purity of the substance too,
Mm.
and prolonged psychosis, after the high. So it's really getting scary for me to. I have guys who will make an appointment with me to as a discovery call. They're so paranoid they can't leave their home, but they think they're being watched in their home, that they're under surveillance, that the government is keeping tab. They live in this altered world, and it's just so sad to watch. And they need to be. I don't know if antipsychotic medication would work or whatever, but it's permanent.
Yeah.
And these are men that haven't used. I talked to one man who used one time, and now he has this irrational fear of death. He used once, and in the 3 to 4 months after He was in the emergency room about twice a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know what it triggered up there. It triggered
Hmm.
something, not Dr. that way, but um, so yes, so after you get that good feeling, right? Like you're saying, the aftermath is you don't show up to work, your family wonders where you are. A lot of couples may be open, and so the chances of you finding crystal meth when you're hooking up on Grinder are very high. One partner will find it and be gone for a week. And then you're hooked. I did it late. I started late. I came out late at 36. I tried it at 39, almost 40. I was just head over heels because I had lived a life in the closet, and then I came into the gay community and still felt like I wasn't accepted.
Hmm.
And when I got to this drug and this day of this man who looked at me and treated me and talked to me and touched me in a way that I had always wanted. I didn't know it was because he was high on meth.
Hmm.
I thought it was me.
Mm.
Right. And so that's what I was addicted to. I was like, okay, now I have finally found at 40 where what I wanted to feel like, you know.
Wow.
Fast forward 3 years, I was homeless.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how fast it can take over, especially for men who have deep insecurities, who have some deep complex trauma, identity. They have an identity crisis. You
Hmm.
know, these type of men are perfect victims for the
Yep.
substance and perfect for getting addicted to it real fast.
And I think victims is a really good word because I think it is, you can see it. I used to live in San Francisco. I live in Denver now. In
Mm,
San Francisco, you could go on the apps and, I felt like it was 50% of the people sometimes, depending on the time of day, were
mm,
cloudy or,
right.
there was some, and it's usually not just one substance, right? Then you're adding in G and you're adding in Trimax and you're adding in
Yeah.
Viagra and all sorts of stuff to sort of keep
Right.
this going. Is that
Mhm.
something that you see often too, is like people are mixing all different kinds of substances?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially
Hmm.
GHB, that's common, really common. But the ironic, weird thing about crystal meth, it's a sex drug. It makes you so hypersexual, yet it makes you flaccid.
Yep.
I mean, for the most part, there are some men who get lucky enough that doesn't affect them. But you're flaccid, so you do have to load up on the Viagra, like you said, the Trimix. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of mixing of, not a lot of like mixing of alcohol or anything like that. And then I also have clients in Europe. And so in Central Europe, it's mephedrone, MEPH is the drug that they use. They use methamphetamine too, but mephedrone is big over there. But it's easily mixed with other drugs as well. And then the new one that's coming is monkey dust is the street name for it. It's bath salts. It's kind of like a new meth, as they say. And that they are not mixing with anything because it's very, very, very powerful and destructive. But yeah, usually you'll see G with it for sure. Yeah.
I think this is something that people can use this one, have one really amazing night of partying and sex, and then, they're addicted, they're hooked. Is that what you find often too, or do you think there are people who are able to use like a harm reduction approach with meth?
Yeah, and that's a big argument right now in the chemsex field is we have some people, some specialists who are saying out there that there is a way to use it to have chemsex safely and you can do it and it not negatively affect your life. And there's some other people in the field who are saying that is absolutely not true. And so we're trying, I think we're really trying to figure out what the narrative is because it's in the US, it's basically like this is bad. Actually, a lot of people don't even know what the word chemsex means in the US. It was actually
Hmm.
born in Europe in London. And so in European countries, they're really, really good at harm reduction.
Uh-huh.
And so that leads to a lot of experts are saying yes, and you can use this long term and not get quote unquote hooked. I don't think there's any research out there about
Yeah.
that. I do know that if it wasn't a problem, we wouldn't have specialized clinics and treatment centers and people like me out there and books written on it, right? There's enough negative effect from it that it's a problem. And in fact, there's some experts calling this the next AIDS crisis
Hmm.
because the queer community is afraid to talk about it because it looks like we're degenerates
Yep.
or it takes away our sexual freedom and prowess, right? To insinuate that we can't quote unquote have fun. And when someone dies from chemsex in the US, it's not labeled as that. It might be a
Mm.
heart attack or it might be, something else, but it really came from them engaging in chemsex. So we're not even admitting or validating the fact that this person died from drug use. And so I just think there could be some people who do it. And when guys come to me and they say, I want to be able to use it every once in a while because I met this guy and he's an attorney. He's used it. He seems to have it under control, right?
Mm.
And I always say, you are meeting him at one point in his journey.
Hmm.
There's one snapshot in his journey. I've met enough attorneys and I've had enough attorney clients to know that this does not last. It
Yeah.
just can't, right? And they'll end up, what happens is you end up losing you lose your license, or you get debarred or whatever the phrase is. And then you have all the time in the world. And then it just spirals, right?
Yeah.
And this happens so often that there it is a problem enough that it should be addressed.
100%. I got chills when you said this is the next AIDS crisis because I think,
Mhm.
I mean, the work I do is mostly with gay couples, and so gay couples, open, closed, monogamous,
Mhm.
non-monogamous, all that. And when I see one of the members or both of the members are there's some chemsex going on,
Mhm.
it's very, very difficult, and it usually has to be treated in some way. I have not really had the experience professionally where when people are coming to see me because of relationship issues, they're able to recreationally use meth and it doesn't cause more problems. I'm wondering if this is something you see in the work that you do as well, is that this causes addiction can cause a lot of
Mhm.
relational trouble.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, big time. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because when there is a couple and they decide to open up or whatever, and one finds it, and then and then what happens a lot is the partner that isn't using moves into a parent role,
Hmm.
a parental role, right? And the other partner has to be infantilized in terms of location shared, monitored, your phone is altered. I have my client's phone. Their phone is basically like a 12-year-old phone.
Hmm.
It's so locked down. And the partner that isn't using is trying so hard to understand how this is working and why does he keep going out and having sex with so many men for days, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to have empathy for that, right?
Hmm.
It's hard to see it. Um, what I have found, and I actually did a podcast on this with a one of my clients who it was in a marriage and they successfully navigated it
Wow.
together. But the husband, the non-user, is a self-diagnosed secure attachment style, right? But he immediately put boundaries down
Hmm.
and gave my client an ultimatum to say, this continues, I have to leave. I'm sorry. Because
Yeah.
what happens often is the couple, the non-user tries to be so supportive and so like giving space to that other person that it enables,
Yeah.
right? Because there's no rock bottom, there's no consequence. And until the pain, the pleasure, until the pain outweighs the pleasure, they're not going to have an incentive to stop. And I always say to the non-user, to the non-user, like he's going out and coming back to a warm man, a warm meal, and a warm mattress. Why would he stop? Right. But it really does take a toll and tear down trust, trust issues, and it's an experience that very few actually honestly make it through, as I'm sure you've probably seen. And then when both are using, I mean, I've tried that. I've tried to help one quit and one didn't want to quit, and you know, it is it's something way above my pay grade, way above my pay grade. But I do have a couple that I help, and I've been able to get somewhere with them, but it's always happens on a Friday night, one stronger than the other,
Yep.
and when that happens, they're going to cave, you know. So it's very difficult. I mean, it's so complicated. I try to do the best that I can, but I'm definitely not a couples coach.
Yeah, I mean it's very difficult, and I think I love what you were saying there that the person who isn't using, a lot of the work sometimes for me is like strengthening that person up and getting their boundaries clear because,
Mhm.
like you said, it usually I feel like in our seat sometimes we can see the train going off the tracks,
Yeah.
and it's not like it usually gets better, right? Things usually get worse, and so they may think it's their rock bottom at a given moment, but it's a journey, and people don't as I'm sure you said, one of the Instagram posts that I really loved that you said was like you were asking the question, why do so many men relapse after rehab? And
Mm.
I
Hmm.
wonder if you could say anything more about that because I think that's connected to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I suggest, and kind of what I'm doing is providing virtual rehab,
Hmm.
basically, for men, either men who can't go, or maybe their job is at stake, they have a high profile job, or they're just out of treatment, right? And they want to stay. So in order to do that, you replicate what happened in treatment. And the first thing that happens when you go to treatment is they take your phone away, right?
Yep.
So if that's the case, if that kept you from using for the last 90 days, whatever, 30 days, then let's try to replicate that and still function, right? So what do? Again, you have to put blocks on your phone.
Yep.
You have to block, not delete the apps. Block it so you can't download them.
Yep.
Right. And most of the time you're going to have to get a new phone number because
Yep.
you have all the people you've used with in there, and they're going to text you randomly and all that kind of thing. Um, and then I also suggest that you deactivate social media temporarily.
Hmm.
You just want you want to be in this protected space as you transition. This is not forever.
Yep.
You can go on Grinder again at some point if you want. I just did a post too about conscious Grinder.
Uh-huh.
How to do that. And so the other thing about being in treatment is your whereabouts are always known by somebody.
Hmm.
So that's what the other thing you have to do is you're going to look at what I tell my guys is look at the next week. Use your meth mind. If you were going to use in the next week, when would it be?
Mm.
Would it be Friday night when your partner's gone to a party, or would it be Wednesday night? When would it be? And now let's in our head, how would you get it? And how would you use? And then we reverse engineer because we're going to put blocks in the way of all that, right? And we're going to systemize it, right? We're going to put in place some extreme measures. So if the partner's away, then maybe a girlfriend comes over to stay. I have clients with bricks, they called, where you put your phone in and you can't
Uh-huh.
access your phone for a certain time, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. You're going to have check-ins with your recovery team.
Hmm.
That's the other thing is you have to tell people, as stigmatized as it is, you must have the best thing you can do is tell the person you're most afraid to tell.
Hmm.
And because exposing it is just it does so much for you. But so you want to have your whereabouts constantly monitored. I know it feels infantilizing and you feel like I'm a grown man, I shouldn't have to do this. now you're being a baby because you're not wanting to do what it takes, but it really does take that. And so, and then what else happens in treatment? You go to a meeting every day, or you go to some type of recovery habit, consistently every day.
Uh-huh.
So that's the other thing you put into place. You put in a recovery habit and you commit to it every single day, consistent daily action. So between those three, plus having a coach, you can replicate that
Yep.
in the transition and then slowly ease up on some things. Like let's have a Friday night by yourself if you want, but also in a controlled environment in terms of I'm still having check-ins,
Mm-hmm.
this person's going to call me, right? But it's like a calculated risk almost to I'm going to stay all night on Friday. And oh, and if you're good, you can have access to Instagram again or whatever, You just ease up on it. But there might be other ways to do it. For me, this has been the most effective.
Uh-huh.
Is and when you have all of this blocked, and when you have the replicated scenario of treatment, also take that time with your clear mind and start doing the work.
Yeah.
Start really doing your recovery work and figuring out who am I now? How do I show up in the world? What is the vision I have for me? Because how do you move forward if you don't know where you're going?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of guys have just lost a sense of self in this experience of chemsex. And so let's start with what are your three core values? And let's go from there, right? Then you can start measuring yourself up to, right? And then what happens when you use, if you do have a relapse, it's less shame and more healthy guilt
Mm,
because it becomes, I'm not a bad person. I'm not getting recovery wrong, but I have these core values, and what I did was out of alignment with those values.
I love that.
And that it gives me incentive to uphold my values, which makes me move forward into the person I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of work is really important while you're away from the world. You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Did you have something similar when you finally got sober yourself, or what was the final straw for you?
Yeah, well, I had been arrested 4 times for felony possession, drug charges. In the meantime, like I said, I had lost my car, I'd lost my job, and finally got evicted. Lost my kids. I had 2 kids that lived with me 50% of the time, and of course, they had to go live with their mom. And so I was homeless. There's a long story, but I finally turned myself in, and I was given an opportunity to participate in drug treatment court. So it's about a year and a half of basically a full-time commitment because, well, I didn't have a car or anything. I was, but I had to go downtown to the courthouse and get tested, drug tested about 3 or 4 times a week randomly.
Wow.
I had to go to treatment. I had to see a caseworker one week and a probation officer the next week, and I had to go to court and see a judge, stand in front of a judge every other week.
Wow.
It was a lot to
Yeah.
to participate in. In that year and a half, that was my replicated treatment. That's I couldn't use. If I used, I was going to prison. So for me, it was actually easier than a lot of these guys who are still functioning. Like
Yeah.
they still have a job, they still have relationships. They're using in secret. They don't have a rock bottom.
Yeah.
To trying to stop is really difficult. But for me, it was an easy choice. But after the year and a half was over, I could have gone
Uh-huh.
back. But by that time, I had experienced what life would be like. And there were so many gifts that came from me getting sober from crystal meth,
Mm.
like introspection, self-awareness. I finally came across to me like a power outside myself, like something that meant I felt connected more to the world and to myself. And so there's so many good things and what I call the gifts of meth. There were gifts given to me that I came out of that experience so much better, just a higher expression of myself. So it was really an experience that needed to happen to get me where I wanted to go. So for me, again, I was under all those constraints, but after I was done, I was sold. I was like, this is the life I want. Yeah.
I think what's really important about what you're saying there and what the structure of this program allowed is that you have to have a period of sobriety, whether it's, a year and a half or a year or whatever it is, because I think particularly with meth, it's just so you can feel the sensations in your body. It's
Mhm.
that powerful
Yeah.
until you get some distance from it.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, I think, for some people to even know that there's going to be a future where they are not going to be able to close their eyes and feel those sensations.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And the biggest hurdle is returning to sober sex
Yeah.
too.
Say more about
Returning to
that.
sex. Yeah. So because meth and sex are fused, it comes in and it kind of scrambles your arousal template. So when you're on meth, you are chasing, like any drug, but you're chasing the next high. You're chasing
Hmm.
the next dopamine high. And so in this world, it's very, as they say, piggy, like it's very
Hmm.
kinky. You go into some dark places, and it's never enough. The problem is that it's never enough. Like
Yeah.
it's okay, like okay, if somebody's into fisting, right? There's no judgment on fisting,
Hmm.
but it's never enough. Like then you need two fists, and then you need fisted with something else, and then you need it videotaped, right? Then you need to do it in public, right? It's just never enough taboo for you.
Yeah.
And so what happens is after you take the meth away, your body is glitching in terms of wait a minute, like sex means that, right? So a lot of us come out of it with erectile dysfunction issues.
Hmm.
A lot of us, most of us, all of us come out with a pornography addiction because you watch hours upon hours trying to get hard, watching this porn for days.
Hmm.
So your brain is hardwired. You cannot get erect unless you see porn, right? And then so when you get in front of another person, you know, the experience of having sex not high is so clunky and awkward to you, and you're so aware of your thoughts and your insecurities, and everything else that existed before just comes back, but it's even more raw. And so the first couple of times you try, it goes so badly you believe in your mind that you're never going to have sober sex again.
Huh.
And men have grappled with this. I'm never having, Tina is the street name for crystal meth, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm never having Tina sex again. And the truth is you won't. But you have to believe it's going to be better. It's going to be sex around consent
Yeah.
and conversation, communication, intimacy, vulnerability, but all that sounds vanilla to somebody who's come out of the meth world. And so I was telling a guy yesterday, he thought he had to give up all of his pigginess because he's not using anymore. But he was piggy. This is his words. He was piggy before. So the process of sexual integration, reintegration, is sorting out what turns me on naturally through my arousal template and what is meth driven,
Hmm.
right? What's sensual and what's sensational? Is this instant gratification or delayed gratification? If it's instant gratification, that's probably an addictive meth or a sex addiction type need. If it's delayed gratification, then that's something to pursue and to look for, right? That process is difficult because it begins with most of the time mindful masturbation,
Hmm.
leaving out the porn, discovering your own body, and then beginning to imagine sober scenarios and figuring out what feels good, what doesn't, right? And if you're lucky enough, a lot of guys just have friends with benefits. There's no kind of attachment there, and they can just kind of quote unquote practice with, which is what I did.
Uh-huh.
It was the best thing for me. It was just to practice with somebody where I didn't, there wasn't a pressure to impress,
Hmm.
and he understood that sometimes I'm not going to get hard. Sometimes I'm not going to ejaculate. I don't know what's going to happen. And sometimes I might cry and be traumatized,
Uh-huh.
right? But you can find people like that in your life. It does make it so much easier. and more healthy. But it's a process, and that process is probably it's got well, it has to be the number one inhibitor for guys to stop using because you have this big sexual desire, you want to have sex and you can't, so the fastest way to do that is through Tina, you know. But that repair it's a lot of deliberate work because you have literally changed the neural pathways in your brain.
I think it's so inspiring that you have actually lived through this process yourself and you've done the hard work. You've put a lot of effort in.
Mm.
And so you can actually show people a pathway forward should they be ready or,
Yeah.
able to go down that pathway with you. And I'm wondering, kind of coming back to the stigma question, why do you
Mhm.
think there is so much stigma around meth in the gay community or in maybe just
Yeah.
in the world at large?
Yeah, I mean, I think meth received a label and a stigma based on the extreme use of it.
Uh-huh.
We had and of course TV and movies. You say crystal meth, and most people will begin to think of a white man in an impoverished part of the country with no teeth and a bunch of sore on his face, right?
Yeah.
And me, I grew up in West Virginia, which is so much meth, right? And that is what I thought of meth because those were the only people I knew who did it.
Hmm.
So there's a stigma there just in general. And then within the queer community, there's a lot of name calling and labels. Those who use it are just dirty or they're tweakers, or they're nasty,
Hmm.
whatever. They're diseased, I mean, I think I saw a quote, a statistic that now over a third of all new HIV cases are due to chemsex use.
Wow.
I did see a quote too, right before we got on that in 2025 said 20% of men who have sex with men worldwide engaging in chemsex.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, one in five.
That's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Um, but the stigma, there's even stigma inside the subculture of crystal meth. Like
Hmm.
if you use a needle, you're worse off than me. You're nastier than me, right? But I only smoke it or
Hmm.
whatever. And then there's hierarchies and cliques inside the parties. If you look at who's allowed in the party, right? And so the stigma is just it's about the images that the word myth conjures up. And again, I think in this queer community, we do a great job of labeling and categorizing and stereotyping. And so that's the problem is you have to come out as a gay man, and then you have to come out as an addict, and then you come out as crystal meth user. A lot of the guys I help will go to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, instead of Crystal Meth Anonymous because they're still afraid to say they use meth in their community.
Wow.
Um, yeah, what was I saying? I've lost my train of thought now.
We're talking
Um,
about the stigma
um,
and
yeah, yeah. But and so yeah, and then you come out as an addict, and then you have to come out as a meth user. And then what I think has been harder for my clients is coming out as having HIV, as living
Mhm.
with HIV, because there's so many. I would say if you took the chemsex world, I don't know what the statistics are there of the amount of us who have contracted HIV through chemsex. It's very high, extremely high. But then you're left with that too, in terms of dating and coming out as that, and the stigma around HIV and the misunderstanding of it, the ignorance of it in our own community, right? And this, the no, the total misunderstanding of you equals you, and all the campaigns that are going on. So there's just so many hurdles to go through when you're trying to recover from this that it sometimes seems daunting and overwhelming.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, it's so, and how are you going to remember to take your prep or your Truvada if you're up for 5 days? You're not even going to probably remember what day it is.
Yeah,
And so you're not going to remember your doxy pep. It's going to be,
right.
It's you're not setting yourself up for sexual health in those moments,
Right.
and you don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. It was common for me during my use because I contracted it in the middle. I contracted HIV in the middle of it. It was common for me to be out of, sorry, out of practice of taking my meds and having
Hmm.
not taken them for days. Because you just can't remember. You can barely remember to drink water, much less your pill regimen, your medicine. So it's tough.
Hmm. So somebody who's watching this and they're thinking, "Gosh, I need some support with this. I'm ready." What
Mhm.
advice would you give that person right now?
Well, I would have to ask questions in terms of the severity of it.
Uh-huh.
Right. So for me in my coaching program, I help a certain segment. Like if you are using on a daily basis, if you need medical detox,
Hmm.
then I would say, if you can't go a day without it, I would look into medically supervised detox first,
Hmm.
get it out of your system, and then come back. But if you need help, there are CMA meetings, 12-step meetings going on all the time everywhere, even
Hmm.
online. That to me, that's a good little start and a segue to get myself disciplined enough to show up somewhere and possibly meet other people who are in recovery. And then, you know, there are now more and more therapists who have a chemsex past, LGBTQ therapists who have a chemsex past that are showing up
Hmm.
in the community now, that can help as well. There's not many chemsex coaches though.
No.
That me. I mean, there's one other Andrew in Australia, and I'm not sure he's doing it anymore. But in terms of a coach who knows exactly how a meth user thinks, there's not many of us out there. Not to say that there isn't, there might be, I don't know. But if you need help, I would definitely start with a CMA meeting, a 12-step meeting. You can just Google it.
Hmm.
You can go on Zoom anytime, anywhere, and just start meeting some people who have done it. And there's content like of mine, social media content that can be helpful. I have a free course too that can at least get somebody started
Uh-huh.
with just kind of there's the act again of something consistent every day that really helps break you out of the habit. And so showing up for a course every day and watching a video and filling out a journal prompt and I'd have some guided meditations on there. It can at least begin to give you something else to do with your mind.
And it's going to be a process. Very few people probably stop using and then never relapse or never use again right away.
Right. No. Yeah. The statistics for chemsex relapse are the highest, within a year. I mean, it's really high, that what I teach people to do is expect relapse. Don't try to make it happen. When it happens, the important part is the response to it. So I
Love
don't
that.
have people start their days over or, their consecutive days over, anything like that. Anything that could stimulate more shame,
Yeah.
right? Shame got you here, but shame is not going to get you out, right?
Nope.
And so if you can say to yourself, okay, I was 3 months meth free, I had a relapse, that was a week ago. Okay, in 3 months, you've used one time. That's great. Think about the previous 3 months. How many times did you use? Oh, like 20. Okay, you're on your way.
Hmm.
You are on your way out. Don't worry about the day count. Let's look at this relapse and what did we learn from it? What was the loophole? Think again, use your mischievous mind. If you were to do an after action review on this, how would you stop it from happening again? And so I just think it really matters in terms of how you respond to the relapse, how you label it, right?
Hmm.
This idea of, and again, I'm not anti 12 steps, but the idea of doing this walk in front of everybody to get another key tag for a gay man who's struggling with chemsex, it's setting themselves up for failure. It's just setting themselves up to feel worse and worse about themselves. The system is not right.
Yeah.
It's the system. It's not you. But you're told it works if you work it. But the system does not fit a chemsex addiction.
No.
So you really have to look through that and really empower the experience of empowering yourself to create your own path and your own journey based on what your individual needs are. That's life skills.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's preparing you to accelerate in all areas. And you become the executive of your own life instead of just assuming everything this person who I just met told me from this book that I know nothing about, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could talk to you about this for hours. You know so much. You have so much wisdom to offer, and I'm so glad you're doing this work because we as a community need people like you doing this more and more and more.
Thank you. Thank you
How
so
can
much.
people get in contact with you?
Yeah. On all social platforms, it's Dr. Dallas Bragg is my handle. So it's everywhere, everywhere. Instagram is kind of my go-to right now, but TikTok was my claim to fame. That's the TikTok algorithm picked me up early on and sent me all around the world. But yeah, all of those places you can contact me there. I do have my own podcast as well. It's called the AfterMeth Podcast. You can listen. I think the podcast is great for if you are a loved one of a person who uses meth, for you to try to understand
Mm,
more about how it works and
so
how you can
important.
help, right? We have family members who want to be there, but they just don't know how,
Hmm.
right? And so we have to give them a job description, but we have to give them an understanding of this crystal meth epidemic in this community. What does it look like? And so that's really why I started the podcast.
Hmm. It's so needed. Yeah, it's so needed. And I'll put all of this in the show notes so people can find you if they want to. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, Dallas. It was
Thank
great to
you so
talk to
much.
you.
Thank you.